Lincoln in Asheville, North Carolina. Hi, Lincoln. Welcome to the Entre Podcast.
Hey, what a privilege is to be able to speak with you today.
You too, sir.
Thank you. So I am 20 years old. I own a landscape company. We have a staff of 9. In 2023, we did about $560,000 in revenue, top line. This year, we're going to do about $850,000 to $1 million, with about $150,000 in profit after I get paid. My question is I feel like I'm not doing a great job being a leader for my team, and I want to learn how to be a better leader at such a young age.
What do you think you're doing right, and what do you think you're doing wrong?
I don't really think there's anything that I'm necessarily doing right or wrong, but it's where, like, a couple issues we're having now is we do have a high turnover rate. I think that might be just because it is hard work and I'm not quite good at hiring the correct people yet. The other thing is, I think one of the big things I actually am doing wrong is I don't know how to lead other leaders, if that makes sense.
It does make sense, yeah. How many different crews have you got?
We currently have 6.
Okay. So you need 6 crew leaders, right?
Correct.
And you lead the 6 crew leaders?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And they're young guys, and they're out there with a blower or a weed eater in their hand when that crew hits the ground, right?
Correct. Well, most of them are between the ages of probably 35 to 50.
Okay. So they're player coaches.
Yes.
Okay. They're in the field working and leading. That crew jumps off the truck and attacks a lawn, comes back, gets on the truck, goes, does the next one.
Yep. Our crew heads are always one's first one out.
Yep.
To get everybody else to work.
Yep. Okay. All right. Are you on site doing any mowing anymore? Any actual work? Any of the labor?
Not often. I try to a couple times a week, but I'm mostly stuck in the office.
Yeah. I really don't want you to, but I was asking. Okay. All right. I think the first thing I learned, and I was probably 10 years older than you when I learned it, was that bosses push, leaders pull. A boss is standing behind the cattle, cracking the whip, going, here, get on. Here, get that done. Here, cracking the whip, right? When you do that, the organization moves at the slowest common denominator, the speed of the worst person. Okay?
Okay.
Leaders walk around front of the cattle, so to speak, or the people, and say, guys, we're going this way, and I'm going at this speed, and here's what I expect. And if you want to be on this train, it leaves at 11:36, and you will be dressed a certain way, doing a certain thing to be on the train. And if you're not here, the train is going to leave you because this is a big bad boy train and it's moving. And if you want to be part of this thing, this is what we're doing. This is what we do. If you don't do that, you're not a we. That's a leader standing in front pulling. You see the difference?
Yes.
And then your job, if you're back at the office, is to talk to your crew leaders and ever so often hit the job sites about when they do, stand and watch the work, walk over, talk to the guys, talk to the crew leaders, encourage the crew leaders, brag on people, give somebody a gift card to the local restaurant for doing a good job, catch people doing something right, ask the leader, the crew leader, what they need from you. How can you help? How can you serve? What problems have they got that you can solve for them to keep the boat moving, to keep the train moving? And your job as a leader is to serve your leaders. Their job as a crew leader is not to boss and crack the whip. It's to lead. And they get off the truck and they say, young man, we're about to cut this grass. You get on it. Let's go. We're about to do this. Get that. Let's move this. Got to do that. Got to do that. And that's not cracking the whip. It's standing in front, pulling and pulling and pulling. And we got to step it up. We're behind on our schedule. We got to move it. Rain's coming in. Rain's your dadgum enemy, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
especially right now.
Mess up schedule.
I find so difficult is, you know, I want to be a leader, and that's why I do go out a couple days a week, and not for long, like an hour. I'll go to a job site where if we have a mowing crew out there, I tell them to hop on the mowers. I'll weed eat everything because that's what the guys don't like to do. But when I get to sit in like the air-conditioned office all day and they're out in the heat for 10, 11, 12 hours working their butts off, I feel like it's really hard to pull them along and not push them and say, hey.
The actual guys, that's true, but not the crew leaders. The crew leaders know your job is to help them get their job done. And so when I'm meeting with one of my guys and there's an area of the company not doing what it's supposed to do, it's like, okay, I'm not going to crack the whip on him or her. I'm going to say, okay, how can I get down the ditch and help you get this thing out? You're stuck. What do we got to do? What do you need from the personalities? What do you need from events? What do you need from the social media team? How can we get this up and running? What's your problem? Where's the breakdown in your model? Where's the breakdown in your revenue chain? What's going on? How can I help? And that's what it sounds like. But it has inherent in that servant idea that we're going to move this thing along. When I realized that, Lincoln, it even changed the way I negotiated and talked with my teenagers. Because I realized my job is not to make great kids. My job is to turn kids into great adults. How can I help you be a better man? Talking to my 15-year-old. Daughter, how can I help you feel safe and protected and be the princess that I know God made you to be? How can I help you be that as your dad? And oh, by the way, that means you're going to go to school. That means you're going to come in. I'm going to serve you by making you brush your teeth so you have some. I'm going to serve you making you do your homework. That's me serving you because you're going to go to college someday and you're going to graduate. When you graduate, you're actually going to be a useful human being. And that's me serving you, because otherwise people who have horrible study habits, have horrible hygiene habits, horrible whatever habits, because their parents were wusses, they didn't serve them. So sometimes serving them feels like bossing, but it's serving them.
Okay. And I think most of the older guys, and don't get me wrong, we have such a great team that work here.
I wasn't. You weren't bad-mouthing anybody. Everything's good.
Yeah. But most of the older guys, they always come in and they talk about how they could never do like my job or the lady who works in her office because we have to deal with clients all day.
Yeah.
But I guess the more the problem is with some of these younger guys, which everybody's older than me, but some of them are only older by a few years.
Well, those guys, you need to teach your leaders to lead those young guys. And if they're sitting in there in that 30 to 40 or 50 range, and the other guys in their 20s, let me tell you the number. 78% of men in America in their 20s spent some time in a single-parent household. Your crew member may be their first dad.
I know that.
So it's not unusual that they are looking for a stable, godly male figure that's not a twerp, that hasn't got a filthy mouth, that's good to his wife, and they need a model and that looks at those young guys as their little brother and is going to love them well, or looks at them almost as a son and is going to love them well. I'm going to teach you that. I know that almost all the professional sports people we deal with, the coaches that are the best in the NFL, they take that role because they're well aware most of the guys on their team don't even know who their dad is. And so I've had many of those coaches look at me with tears in their eyes and go, I'm the first dad he had. And and they take that role as an opportunity to be a blessing to those young men. So you could teach those crew leaders that. Say, guys, you got an opportunity here to change that young man's life, to teach him to be honest, to teach him to work hard, to teach him to have a callus. In a culture where people don't know how to work, man, you got an opportunity to be a blessing to these young guys and give them something nobody else could give them. And that crew leader, that's how I would be talking to your crew leader. You're not just there to crack the whip and get the yard cut, buddy. You're there to love these young men. That's your job. Your job is to love them like they're yours and take care of them. And if they need something, if the equipment's half butt, we need to get the equipment fixed. If the customer's bitching, send them to Lincoln. He'll take care of the customer. That's his job. None of us want to screw with that. And, whatever. And my job is to make, these are my guys. This is my little band of brothers right here. And when you start looking at it that way, rather than they are units of production, then they'll start sticking around because it's the first dad they ever had. And they're not leaving him. They're going to hang out with him. He changed my life. And I can tell you, I had a dad, but I can tell you men I've worked for that took that position that had a huge influence on my life anyway, in spite of that. So that's not a bad thing. There's nothing evil about that, nothing weird about it, unless you make it weird. But, that's what I'd be teaching those guys. You're a good leader already just because you're thinking about this stuff, Lincoln. Thank you. Well done. Keep it up, stud. This is the EntreLeadership Podcast.